Every creature on earth survives by its nature, by what it is equipped to do. The lion hunts with claws, the bird flies with wings, and the beaver builds with instinct. Man alone must think. His essential characteristic, as Ayn Rand observed, is his rational faculty. He is the only creature whose means of survival is not instinct, not muscle, not fang or feather, but mind. Yet in an age that prides itself on compassion and inclusivity, few things are more neglected or more denounced than reason itself. Man cannot live, as animals do, by the reflexes of perception. His senses may tell him that fruit grows on trees, but not which fruit is safe to eat. They may show him the shelter of a cave, but not how to build a home. The simplest acts of human survival, lighting a fire, planting a crop, building a tool, require a process of thought. Thought is man's bridge between perception and action, between what is and what ought to be. This fact, simple yet profound, forms the foundation of civilization. Every comfort and convenience we enjoy, from the wheel to the iPhone, was born not from instinct, but from intellect. The mind is not merely one of man's tools, it is the tool on which every other depends. What distinguishes human reason from animal instinct is volition. A lion cannot choose to stop hunting, a beaver cannot choose to stop building. Man, however, can choose to think or not to think, and therein lies both his greatness and his peril. Civilization is not automatic. It must be built and maintained by those who choose to engage in the disciplined act of thinking. The wealth, comfort, and progress we take for granted are the cumulative result of countless acts of rational thought. Yet, as history shows, there has never been a shortage of men eager to evade thought. The temptation to live by feeling rather than reason, by emotion rather than evidence, has plagued mankind since the dawn of society. The barbarian plunders rather than produces. The collectivist legislates equality rather than pursues excellence. Both are driven not by reason, but by desire. We live in an age of extraordinary technological sophistication and intellectual poverty. While the tools of reason have advanced, the respect for reason has declined. Universities that once existed to cultivate rational inquiry now reward grievance over logic and ideology over evidence. Feelings are treated as facts, and disagreement as aggression. The language of reasoned debate has been replaced by slogans and the discipline of thought by the comfort of conformity. It is as if we have returned to a primitive state, one in which the tribe's emotions dictate truth. This is no small matter, for a society that loses faith in reason forfeits its ability to solve problems, to settle disputes, and to preserve liberty. A people that ceases to think for itself becomes prey to those who think for it. The demagogue and the tyrant alike thrive in an environment where emotion substitutes for evidence. It is not an accident that every totalitarian regime, from the Nazis to the communists, has sought to suppress reasoned inquiry. Free thought is the one weapon tyrants cannot control. The decline of reason is not merely an intellectual failure, but a moral one. To think is to take responsibility for one's own mind, one's own life, and one's own choices. To refuse to think is to surrender that responsibility. In this sense, reason is not only man's means of survival, but also his highest moral duty. A man who evades reason renounces his nature. He becomes a dependent not merely in economics, but in spirit. The refusal to think is the root of every injustice, every cruelty, every act of tyranny. No dictator ever rose without the consent of an unthinking populace. When people stop reasoning, they start obeying. When they stop questioning, they start believing whatever the loudest voice tells them. And when they trade the discipline of thought for the comfort of faith in leaders, ideologies, or collective passions, they do not achieve unity. They achieve slavery. Every great advance in history, scientific, political, or moral, has been the result of reason's triumph over emotion, of thought's victory over impulse. The discovery of natural laws replaced superstition with science. The founding of America replaced the divine right of kings with the rational principle of consent. The abolition of slavery was the triumph of moral reasoning, the recognition of human equality as a logical extension of natural rights. In every case, progress has depended on man's willingness to subordinate feeling to fact, to follow truth wherever it leads. The irony is that reason, which has lifted mankind from barbarism to prosperity, now finds itself under attack by those who enjoy its benefits most. If man's mind is his basic means of survival, then the defense of reason is the defense of life itself. A society that undermines the individual's capacity to think, through censorship, propaganda, or enforced conformity, does more than restrict speech. It strangles the source of all human progress. The battles of the future will not be fought merely over land or wealth, but over reality itself, over whether truth is discovered by logic or decreed by authority. In that struggle, the rational mind is both the weapon and the prize. To live as man is to think. Every act of reason, from the farmer planning his crop to the engineer designing a bridge, is a quiet affirmation of human dignity. It declares that man's mind is sovereign, that his nature is not to submit, but to understand. Civilization is not built by those who feel, nor by those who follow, but by those who think. If we wish to preserve freedom, prosperity, and truth itself, we must defend not only the right to think, but also the moral necessity of it.
Can you say why America is the greatest country in the world?
Freedom and freedom. So let's keep it that way.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
Everything in the Bill of Rights tells the government what it can't do to restrict my freedom.
Make government more the servant and not the master of us all. In this free nation, we do not choose to be ruled. We elect to be governed.
Do not support your own oppressors. Stop letting the system exploit you.
I think that the real job that we have that confronts us is to somehow be able to sell our fellow Americans on the moral superiority of personal liberty.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.